Mike, check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and your games are not worth what you think they're worth. I recently posted a video talking about curating your collection, the size of your collection, and really kind of the idea of the video was pretty much quality over quantity. And one of the things that I stressed in that video is that quality is very subjective, especially when it comes to video games, because it's based on your taste, it's based on the types of games that you like. The consoles that you like to play your games on. There's so many factors that could determine quality for so many gamers out there. It's almost hard to objectively identify. But one thing that is objective is the black and white dollars and cents price that we see for the different games that we might buy. Now, sometimes the price does correlate with the value of the game in terms of the gameplay, how good it is to play, how fun it is, the replay value, different things like that. But sometimes you have games that are just really expensive for no reason. There's really no value in the game, there's no fun to be had there, and it is just objectively a bad game, or based on popular opinion, right? The game is viewed as a bad game. Now, in that video, I did mention the total value or the current value of my games roughly. It was an estimate. And one of the prevailing comments that I got under that video was that I think I had mentioned that the value was about 60,000. And so one of the comments, or a few of the commenters, really said that even though the value was 60,000, that I'd be lucky to get 30 to 35,000 cash for it. And to that, I say two things. One, you're probably right. If I did decide to sell my collection all in one shot, let's say I decided to do a whole bulk sale for all of my video games, the truth of the matter is that I probably would only get 30,000, if that, maybe 35,000, if I decided to sell it to a reseller. The second thing that I would say to that is that it's a good thing that I'm not trying to sell my entire collection. And I'm well aware that the value of retro video games does not equate to the actual dollar amount that you would get for the games. In fact, I posted a video a few weeks back basically saying that expensive video games are not a flex. If you want to be honest and put video games aside, just being successful in life is a flex. Like if you're successful in your career with what you want to do with your life, if you're able to successfully, build or maintain or grow a family, if you have successful relationships, if you're taking care of your health, right? Being healthy is a flex. There's all kinds of flexes in life. Video games aren't one of them. But to those commenters, I will say that they were absolutely right. When it comes to the value of video games, that's all there is, right? It's just a value, right? And that value does not become actualized until that value is then translated or it becomes actual dollars and cents. Now, it doesn't mean that we should completely ignore the value of video games, because here is where value comes in handy when it comes to video games. The value of video games comes in particularly handy when you're trying to trade games for other games, right? So that's part one, because if you're doing a local trade and you're making the trade based off of the value of a game, that's when the value becomes really important, because there might be times where you don't necessarily want to spend any money. Maybe you don't want to pay any dollars and cents for video games. And if you have games in your collection that are of value to someone else, then it becomes an asset to you in being able to acquire different games or better games or other games that you want to experience. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is that there's really more than one way to skin a cat, quite honestly. I know that a lot of people tend to think that the only way you can get rid of your collection is by selling your entire collection to a reseller. Well, that might not necessarily be the case. There's a lot of ways that you can sell your collection to maximize the dollar amount that you get back from your collection, should you choose to do so. Now, the scenario given, I think, with a lot of comments is that, or a lot of the comments was that if you were to sell your collection in bulk. Personally, me, if I were to liquidate my collection, I would not sell it in a bulk deal, because to me, Selling your collection in a bulk deal is like a it's a break glass measure, right? You sell your entire collection in bulk when your back is against the wall, you have nothing else that you can do, and you have to sell your video games. I'll knock wood. Luckily, I've never been in that position. I don't anticipate being in that position. And should I see myself heading down that path, I'd probably take alternate measures than resorting to doing a bulk deal on my video game collection. That's part one. Part two is that I wouldn't have the type of video game collection I have today if I wasn't in the position to have it. I would need to, thankfully I'm in a position where I can afford to have the collection, so that's not a that's not a concern of mine. But to speak to the fact of selling your collection, there's a lot of ways that you can sell your collection, and there's a lot of ways that you can sell certain games. And I have these three games here because they serve as really good examples. So let's use Pokemon for example. Pokemon Red is a game that will sell fast in almost any environment, and you'll probably get a good dollar amount for it no matter where you sell it. If you put it on eBay, you'll get biters. If you put it on Mercari, you'll get biters. If you have it at a yard sale, they'll jump all over it. If you take it to a game store, you'll probably get good value for it. If you sell it to GameStop, even GameStop might give you, and GameStop doesn't give you anything, but even GameStop might give you some decent value for Pokemon Red. And if you took a game like that to a convention or anywhere like that, you're going to get somewhere close to the price charting value for it. Selling a game like Pokemon Red is not a hard sell because it's a very popular game. A lot of people want it. There's a lot of nostalgia tied to it. And so the way you would sell a game like Pokemon Red is completely different from the way you would sell a game like Lunar for the Sega CD. Why? Because the market for Lunar is a lot smaller. It's a very niche game on a very niche system. Not many people have a Sega CD these days. Not many people play or even care about a Sega CD these days. So taking a game like Lunar to like a mom and pop shop, or even taking it to like a GameStop, would be a futile effort. That would not be the way that I would try to sell Lunar. Probably your best way to sell a game like Lunar, in all honesty, would be at a gaming convention or some type of game and trade event that you might have in your local area. You would need to bring a game like this into an environment where there's a heavy concentration of retro game collectors, buyers who are looking to build or complete their Sega CD collection, and you want to put this in front of the eyes of people who are willing to pay the close to the value of what this game is worth. It's either that, or you put it on a place like eBay or on a place like Mercari and let it sit. Will a game like this sell overnight if it's priced at full value? Probably not. You'd probably have to discount a game like this maybe by 20-25%, and then maybe someone who's looking to build their Sega CD collection might buy a game like this really quickly online. But the sales window, the sales channel for a game like this to get full value is a lot more narrow than a game like Pokemon. And then you have a game like Zelda Breath of the Wild, which to me is kind of like in the middle of these two. The reason why I say that is because it's not as much of a high demand as like a Pokemon game, but it's not super niche like a Sega CD game. This is a game that's widely known. A lot of people know about Breath of the Wild. But it's a Switch game, right? And there's a lot of ways that you could pick this game up outside of buying it from someone on eBay or Mercari or whatever the case may be. You could still probably buy a brand new copy of this somewhere in most game stores, most major retailers. There's ample copies of this game everywhere, but it's still a desirable game. If someone were to see this game and you were selling it at a good enough price, you won't get full value for it, or whatever the pre-owned value of this game is. I'm not even sure what that is right now. But you're going to get decent value for a game like Zelda Breath of the Wild. Why? Because a lot of people are still playing the Switch. There are many people who are still being introduced to the Switch for the first time who have never heard of the game or never played the game The Legend of Zelda. And so the way you would sell a game like this is completely different. This might be a game where you may get some decent value from like a GameStop or a mom and pop shop because it's a very relevant game and it's a game that is recognizable and people might want to play. And so I think like when you start looking at the value of your video games and how you would go about selling them, You really have to keep that in mind as you're buying your games if you factor value into how you build your collection. I'm going to be honest, value matters to me. It's not the most important thing when it comes to my collection, but the value factor does matter. And I think for most collectors, they think about the value. If there's a collector that says they don't think about the value, they're lying, because you're always thinking about what your exit strategy is in your collection should you choose to just decide to not collect anymore. Collecting, for some people, is a lifelong thing. Collecting for some people is seasonal. Some people, there may be a season in their life where they're heavy into retro, then maybe they go back to modern, then maybe they concentrate on a certain system. And you don't necessarily have to sell your entire collection to shake things up. Maybe you can just concentrate on one particular, niche area in, whether it be retro games or shoot 'em ups or RPGs, whatever the case may be. But as you start to niche down, maybe you want to sell off some of the parts of your collection that aren't as interesting to you anymore. And so I think, just to go back to those comments, I think they were absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, cash value, never look at the value of your retro game collection and think that's the cash value, because there's a difference between value and cash value. And you'd be a fool to think that if you were to try and liquidate your video games in one day, that someone would be willing to give you that high amount of cash. But thinking about that, that's kind of true in a lot of cases. If everyone decided to, and I mentioned this when I talked in a video the other day, if everyone decides to sell the same stock, they're not going to get the same price that they paid for the stock. Stocks go up and down every day. Real estate, the prices of real estate go up and down every day. You may buy a house today, and if you decide to sell it in a year, it may go down in value. I think it's just your entry and exit strategy in anything that you buy, anything that you're collecting, anything that you're investing in. You just got to be thinking about that. And the way I view cash and money, everything is an investment. The food you buy is an investment into your health. If you're constantly buying McDonald's, then you're making a poor investment into your health. If you're constantly buying fast food and junk food and gross food, you're not making the best in food investment for the health of your body. But if you're buying fruits, if you're buying vegetables, obviously if you're buying things that are high in nutrients, then you're making the right type of, you're investing in the right types of food for the betterment of your health. And that's just kind of how I look at cash, and that's kind of how I look at money. Anything that you put your money into, you should be getting something out of it, even if it's entertainment, right? Like, you'd be upset if you spent $100 for tickets to a baseball game and all your favorite players weren't playing. You'd be upset. You'd be like, dude, I spent all this money on these tickets and these guys aren't even playing today, right? You would feel like it was a wasted investment. Or if you spent money on a movie, I don't know who goes to the movies anymore. It seems like the movies is kind of like a dying thing. But if you bought tickets to a movie and you get there and the movie stunk, it was trash, you felt like you wasted your investment. So if you look at money that way, and if you look at, the value, cash value, there's a difference between cash and value. There's a difference between money and value. If you look at things that way, you're always going to be thinking about, what's it costing you to get into something and what's it going to cost you to get out of something. And, luckily for me, a lot of the games that I find and a lot of the games that I get into, the games that I wind up trading away, I've gotten a lot of those games either for free or severely underpriced. So for me, it winds up either being a net neutral or a net positive. Not all the time. Some, you got to pay for something. Obviously, you got to, not everything is free. But at this stage of the game, like I said, when it comes to curation, you're thinking about value more than necessarily the cash you would get, because, or at least me, I'm thinking more so in terms of value versus cash, because I'm not selling my collection tomorrow. I'm not in a financial pinch. I don't need the cash. So, but I definitely understand the thought process and, how people can conflate value versus the cash that they would get for their collections. But let me know what you guys think. Am I way off here? Do you think that all these games are the same? Do you think there's a difference in how you sell some games versus other games? Do you think it's easier to liquidate some games than it is other games? I'm interested to know your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.